NTI Day number 33, 5th grade reading. The Rise of Big Business. Build on what you know. You probably enjoy talking to your friends and relatives on the phone. In the late 1800s, the telephone was a brand new invention. Few Americans had one. A time of invention. Main idea. Inventions of the late 1800s changed people's lives. The last half of the 1800s was full of wonderful inventions. These inventions allowed people to do things that had been impossible before, such as recording sound. New machines saved time and money and improved life for many people. Here's a picture of a typewriter. It was first produced by E. Remington and Sons. And I learned as a student how to type on a typewriter. Okay, up here we have a picture of Alexander Graham Bell. He was in his laboratory in Boston. And that's with his assistant of Thomas Watson. And we're going to read to see about what he invented. Inventions for home and work. In 1872, Elijah Mccoy invented an oil cup. The oil cup kept trains and other machines running longer by dripping oil over moving parts. In 1874, E. Remington and Sons became the first company to make and sell typewriters. Office workers saved time by typing letters and reports. In 1867, Margaret Knight invented a machine that made paper bags with a flat bottom so they could hold more. Her paper bag making machine is still in use. Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone in 1876. So there they are inventing the telephone in that picture, or discussing it. Workers in large buildings used the telephone to talk to people on the floors. People at home used telephones to talk to friends and relatives hundreds of miles away. Thomas Edison created over 1,000 inventions. In 1877, he invented the phonograph, or record player. For the first time, sounds such as music and speech could be recorded and played back. Edison developed the electric light bulb in 1879. Before electric lighting, people used gas lights. These lights were smoky and could start fires. Electric lights were cleaner, safer, and brighter than gas lamps. They kept city streets bright and allowed factories and shops to stay open after dark. These inventions affected the way businesses operated. Some inventions kept machines running longer or made it possible for workers to do more work. During the last half of the 1800s, new inventions allowed businesses to change. So Granville Woods, he improved the telephone, telegraph, and transportation system. His inventions made streetcars like the one below faster and safer. So in what ways did inventions of the late 1800s save time? Office workers saved time by typing instead of writing. They had telephones allowed instant communication. Big businesses. Businesses in the late 1800s produced more goods, hired more people, and earned more money than before. In 1856, British scientist Henry Bessemer invented a process to make steel. The Bessemer process made steel much less expensive to produce. Andrew Carnegie was one of the first people in the United States to use the Bessemer process. He built a factory that used the Bessemer process to make steel rails for railroads. Steel rails lasted much longer than the iron rails that other American factories sold. Railroad companies bought Carnegie's steel rails, and his business grew. To help his steel companies succeed, Carnegie bought fuel companies, railroads, and ships. Because he owned these companies, he could get fuel for his factories and shipping for his goods at a lower price. By 1900, Carnegie Steel Company produced about 1/4 of all the steel made in the United States. Corporations. Andrew Carnegie's Steel Company was big, but John D. Rockefeller's oil company was even larger. In 1870, Rockefeller formed the Standard Oil Company, which made products such as fuel and lamp oil. Standard Oil was a corporation. A corporation is a business in which many people own shares or parts of the business. Corporations pay part of their profits to their share owners. A profit is the money earned by businesses after all the cost of machinery, workers, and raw materials are paid. Companies grow larger. Corporations such as Standard Oil grew and became more common in the late 1800s. A corporation could raise money to sell lots of shares to many people. Business owners wanted to raise money to build factories and buy expensive machines. A small business could not afford the factories or machines needed to produce many products. Another way Standard Oil grew was by buying other oil companies. It soon controlled 90% of the oil sold in the United States. One reason Rockefeller bought these companies was to reduce competition. Competition occurs when more than one business tries to sell the same goods or services. When there is competition, a company has to keep price low and quality high to get customers to buy its goods. When there is little competition, consumers have fewer choices about where to get the goods and services they want. A company with fewer competitors may raise prices or provide poor service. Rockefeller bought so many oil companies that Standard Oil almost became a monopoly. A monopoly is a company that has no competition. Entrepreneurs such as Carnegie and Rockefeller earned large profits for their companies. They were accused, however, of using business practices that hurt consumers and small businesses. Both Carnegie and Rockefeller became philanthropists. That is a person who gives money to projects to help other people. Carnegie and Rockefeller believed wealthy people should use some of their money for good causes. Carnegie paid for the libraries in nearly 3,000 towns. He gave away around $350 million. Rockefeller donated over $500 million to schools, colleges, churches, and hospitals. So a monopoly is a company that has no competition. Here's a picture of Rockefeller. And that's kind of hard to see. It says oil production in 1879. Other companies had about 10%, whereas the Standard Oil had about 90%. The oil production in 1879, the Standard Oil controlled most of the oil production in the United States. Rockefeller became one of the richest people as a result. Workers' lives change. Workers unite to improve working conditions. In the late 1800s, businesses used mechanization to speed up the process of producing goods. Mechanization is the use of machines to do work. Machine-made goods could be sold at lower prices than handmade goods. Consumers bought these quantities of the expensive machines-made products. Businesses made more goods and hired more workers to run the machines. Factories and businesses grew bigger. Some had thousands of workers. Workers in factories did the same thing for 10 or 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. Few factories had safe working conditions, and many workers were injured or killed in accidents. The labor movement. Factory workers were poorly paid. Many families struggled to pay for a place to live and food to eat. Children as young as 10 to 15 years old worked because their families needed the money they earned. Anyone who complained about poor pay or bad working conditions could be fired. Workers formed labor unions so that they could act as a group and have more power. A labor union is an organization of workers that tries to improve pay and working conditions for its members. The Knights of the Labor was the first large labor union. It was formed in 1869. Its goals were safer working conditions and an 8-hour workday. The Knights of the Labor also wanted to stop businesses from hiring children. The labor union used strikes to try to force business owners to make changes. During a strike, workers could refuse to use. Striking workers. Labor unions included workers from different countries. The striking workers in this photo hold signs written in different languages. So you have Hebrew, English, Russian, Italian. Some workers thought the Knights of Labor was not doing enough. In 1886, these workers formed the American Federation of Labor, the AFL. They elected Samuel Gompers as the AFL's president. The AFL was a large group of trade unions. A trade union is an organization of workers who do the same type of jobs, such as plumbing, or are in the same industry, such as steelworking. Trade unions in AFL wanted better wages, safer conditions in the workplace, and shorter work days. He was an immigrant from England. Gompers believed that workers needed to act together to improve working conditions. The first labor unions did not have much success. Strikes failed when businesses fired the strikers. People were hurt or killed in fights between police and soldiers and striking workers. Powerful monopolies often blocked progress for workers. Labor unions, however, continued to bring workers together. So why did workers form labor unions? Because they wanted to improve their working conditions and their pay. Lesson summary. In the late 1800s, many inventions changed people's lives. Businesses became large and earned bigger profits. Workers formed labor unions to improve poor working conditions. Why it matters. Inventions allowed people to save time and made life easier. Changes in businesses created more profits and led to the first labor unions. Okay, here are 5 questions. How did the inventions change people's lives? It took people more time to do things. They could do more work in less time. Which invention made it possible for factories and shops to open at night? The oil cup or the electric light bulb? How did Standard Oil become a monopoly? It sold all the U.S. companies. It bought small companies to reduce competition. Factory work, G was dangerous or H was safe. Number 5, before labor unions, people in factories, B, worked 10 to 12 hours a day, or D, were paid a lot of money.